Good evening. Families of boys who were raped and abused at a Sussex boarding school have told this programme that their concerns about the member of staff responsible were repeatedly ignored. Darren Turk was the head of care at Frewen College in Northiam in the late 1990s.
Well, he took his own life at the end of a 6-week trial last summer, but families of his victims say their worries were dismissed by the school's headmaster at the time, Simon Horsley. Amanda Acas has our exclusive investigation.
For 6 years, Darren Turk preyed on vulnerable young boys in his care. While they were raped and abused, the school, which should have been protecting them, ignored their parents' concerns.
What this monster did to these boys, it could have been stopped.
One family were even threatened with legal action for trying to speak out.
Even to this day, when you come talking to me, I keep thinking, what are they going to do?
But a buried report I've uncovered shows the authorities had known about the allegations for years.
I was treated as if I was a nuisance. My concerns were dismissed.
I tracked down the former headmaster. He didn't want to answer any questions.
Can you please open that door? Can you open that door and just leave it ajar?
Robert was attacked by Darren Turk in his first year at Frewen College. We're protecting his identity.
One day he assaulted me, he trod on my face. We reported him to Childline and all of us got suspended for doing that. Childline were told we were lying and we actually weren't. If they'd listened to what I was saying, then none of this would have happened.
Frewen College is a specialist school for children with dyslexia and other learning difficulties. Most students were there on grants from their local education authorities. As head of care, Darren Turk was responsible for the boarders overnight and also arranged camping trips during the holidays. Judith's 12-year-old Jack was another of Turk's victims.
He rang me at 7:30 in the morning, crying and saying somebody has done something rude. Then that Turk must have come in the room then. He told him to shut up in the most awful way, told him to be quiet. He raped him that morning. I'm positive of that.
While Judith didn't know Jack was being abused at the time, she frequently complained about his bruises and Turk's 3 pet pythons.
He used to come down and put the snakes in their beds. To me, that was mental cruelty. No one seemed to care.
Darren Turk was accused of raping and sexually assaulting boys between 1996 and 2002, when he was dismissed after a pupil reported being raped. He wasn't charged and put on trial until 2016, after the case was reopened, but took his own life the day before the jury delivered their guilty verdict. In April this year, the Court of Appeal overturned that on the legal basis that the dead can't be put on trial. Rebecca says the decision was devastating. Her son is still so traumatised after being raped by Darren Turk, he can barely leave the house.
My son was a broken, fragile child when he told me. There was no way he could lie about something that was so intimate in the sexual act, and he didn't know about that. It has just destroyed every dream my son might have had.
But the school had been made aware of allegations about Darren Turk at least 3 years before he was dismissed. Concerns raised by the 2 matrons in 1999 led to an investigation by police and social services. I've uncovered a draft copy of the report from that investigation, which lists nearly 20 allegations, including inappropriate touching, boys spending nights in Turk's room and in his tent on a camping trip. But the team concluded that while there were times his conduct had given cause for concern, they found the management was monitoring the situation closely. They decided the claims were too short on detail. Jackie, the mother of another of Turk's victims, raised repeated concerns about his behaviour. She still has files of letters she sent to the headmaster, this man, Simon Horsley.
I was very concerned back then about boys being allowed to enter Darren Turk's private quarters. And really none of these things were really addressed.
Another mother, Sarah, says Simon Horsley threatened her son with expulsion after she tried to investigate Turk's background.
Within minutes he was on the phone threatening to throw my son out of the school. But now I know all of my concerns and my worries were right.
Simon Horsley is still working in education. He runs a tutoring business for students with dyslexia in Wakefield. I went to ask him about why Darren Turk had been allowed to remain as head of care for so many years.
But do you not have anything to say? Was there a cover-up, do you think?
He eventually invited me into his home. But then he and his partner locked me into the porch.
Can you please open that door? Can you open that door and just leave it ajar?
Well, Mr Horsley refused to be interviewed, but he did eventually agree to answer a few questions off camera. He repeatedly denied there had been a cover-up and says all decisions were taken in good faith. I asked him why he didn't listen to the parents when they raised concerns about Darren Turk. He says he doesn't really remember that many complaints being made. I asked him whether he took any personal responsibility for what happened, and he would just say, "I was the headmaster."
He was the headmaster, he had a duty of care, he was paid a salary to look after our boys, and when people did try and talk to him, he just brushed it under the carpet.
Judith wrote to one of the governors about what had happened to Jack and was sent a letter threatening potential legal action. She wanted the school to be closed down and spoke to MP Andrew Selous.
Every school, if it's alerted to allegations like this, has an absolute duty to fully cooperate and fully investigate and not start threatening the people that are raising these concerns with them. That's a completely unacceptable way to behave.
The school's current headmaster has sent us a statement saying the leadership, staff and culture of Frewen College are now entirely different. We have rigorous safeguarding measures in place. For the families of those abused there, that's some consolation. But it doesn't extinguish their anger over the school's failure to deal with Darren Turk while their sons were still in his power.
Well, Amanda Acas joins me now. And Amanda, clearly the abuse that Darren Turk inflicted on his victims has had a massive impact on them.
Well, I think it's fair to say that really it's ruined the lives of some of the victims. One of the young men I met, he's only 32 now, but he says he's still so traumatised by what happened. He can't really work, he doesn't really speak very much. Anything that reminds him of Darren Turk really triggers a mental breakdown. A number of the others suffer from depression, drug addiction. I know one of them at least is a heroin addict sleeping rough on the streets. Now, these are all boys with learning difficulties. They'd struggled at mainstream school and their parents had really fought hard to get them into Frewen College in the first place, so they're bitterly regretting that decision now.
So, will any further action be taken in this case?
Well, the MP we heard from there, Andrew Selous, he's written to the Secretary of State for Education in response to my investigation to ask what safeguarding measures were in place at the college at the time and also around any measures still in place around former members of staff who still work with children. Sussex police say they couldn't have brought any charges in 2002 because they didn't have enough evidence, but they reopened the investigation at the request of the families.
OK, Amanda, thank you very much.